kids. Okay, so you are going to be using a Nearpod today. Now, some of you may have experience with Nearpods in the past. They're quite easy to use. You just have to know your Nearpod code. So whenever you have a Nearpod, I will be giving you a code to use for that Nearpod. So you will put in nearpod.com in your address bar, and you will be taken to a website that looks like this. And you are a student, and so you are going to be putting your code right here in the student code spot, and you'll press the blue circle with the arrow to go to your Nearpod. Now, whatever the Nearpod is that I have given you is going to be what it takes you to. First, you have to log in with your Google account. Do not ever choose log in with Office 365. Always choose log in with Google. Then it's going to ask you if this is the Google account that you want to use. And you'll say, yes, as long as it pops up with your name, you'll say, yes, that's me. If you have to log into Google, just remember it's your S number at student.knoxschools.org, and then it's the same password that you used to log into your Chromebook. Now, it should take you to your Nearpod that I have given you for that day. I want to point out something over here on the side. You see what looks like a little piece of paper and a pencil. If you click that and you choose Save to Google Drive, again it'll ask you, make sure that it's your Google Drive. You'll say yes, you allow Nearpod to save to your Google Drive. No, you're not going to select a specific folder. Now, if you save any notes for any of these slides, which I will show you why you might want to save some notes in a minute, you can save them and access them on your drive. Alright, so if you were doing this Nearpod, you would then come to our objective page. I know it's very easy to want to just go on by this really fast because this is just a bunch of words and you may not want to read them. It is best for you to go ahead and read them. This is also important information. Your parents can read this and then they can understand what the objective or what you're trying to learn in this lesson is. So in this lesson, our objective is to use best practices during a Ready Mathematics lesson, to identify and explain models or strategies used to solve problems, to critique and compare solution strategies of others and those provided in Ready, use Math Talk practices to efficiently share and compare strategies for solving problems, and to apply math knowledge and modeling techniques to new similar problems. So your mathematical objectives, you're going to evaluate models of 3-digit numbers to determine whether numbers are greater than, less than, or equal to each other. You're going to break apart numbers and use place value models to add and subtract 3-digit numbers. Okay, and these are both third grade. This is actually going to be from a second grade lesson, but both of these things you should have already in your brain from second and third grade, but we are reviewing these things because we will be using them very soon. And also I really want you to get used to using the routine of think, share, compare. The prerequisite skills that you need to have coming into this lesson are identify place value in 3-digit numbers, understand the concepts of greater than, less than, and equal to, model 3-digit numbers, and perform 2-digit addition and subtraction with and without regrouping. Your lesson vocabulary is going to be greater than symbol. Okay, that's the alligator when he's eating something to the left. Less than symbol, that's your alligator when he's eating something to the right. Equal symbol, regroup, to compose or decompose, that means to put together or take apart ones, tens, or hundreds. For example, 10 ones can be regrouped as 1 10, or 2 hundreds can be regrouped as 20 tens. You also need to know the word sum, which is the result of addition. That's what you get when you add something together. That answer is called the sum. And difference, that's the result of subtraction. That means that when you subtract, you are left with the difference. The difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. You just click on this blue over arrow when you're ready to move to the next slide. You can also go back if you realize that you've forgotten something. You can go forwards and backwards. So your learning progression, this is grade 4, lesson 0. We have not started lesson 1 yet. Lesson 0 prepares students for grade 4, unit 1 by reviewing prerequisite content and introducing the think, share, compare routine for learning mathematics. Students compare 3-digit numbers using a quick draw place value model, place value charts, number sentences with comparison symbols, and strategies of their own. Students add and subtract 3-digit numbers with regrouping using break-apart strategies, place value models, and strategies of their own. In grade 4, unit 1, students will add, subtract, and compare with greater numbers. They will explore the concept that a digit in one place has 10 times the value it has in the place to its right. Students will use place value understanding to round numbers to any place. Students will also develop strategies of their own in addition to ready strategies. So that's why we're doing lesson 0, is to get us ready for unit 1. All right, so that think, share, compare routine that I talked about is what we need to go through every time that we're solving a problem. We want to make sense of the problem, and we're going to be focusing on that a lot because when we make sense of the problem, we break it down into multiple steps. We then want to solve and support your thinking. We then want to discuss, then compare, then connect and reflect, and then apply. Okay, so here's a problem, and let's go ahead and start that think, share, compare process in our problem. So make sense of the problem. What is the problem about? Why are you trying to find out? And what information is important? That is what we do every time we make sense of the problem. That's the first step in the think, share, compare routine, is making sense of the problem. So we have to figure out, what is the problem about? What are you trying to find out? And what information is important. So let me model for you how we go about making sense of a problem. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do to make sense of the problem is read it. And when I'm reading it this first time, what I want to think about is, what is this problem about? When I think about what a problem is about, it's almost like picturing it as a movie in my mind, okay? I'm not going to be thinking about the numbers. I'm going to be thinking about who is in this story, where is this story taking place, and what is happening in this story. Okay, I want to be able to picture what's going on in my brain as though it's a movie. So this problem says, these 2 paintings are in the school art contest. Which painting has more votes? Use a picture or model to show that you are correct. Painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. All right, so all I'm thinking about right now is, what is this problem about? And if I was to think about this problem, close my eyes, and picture it in my mind, I would picture myself at a school art contest, and that I'm looking at 2 paintings that each have received votes. Now, if you notice, I did not use any numbers in what I just said. I just said where I am, who is there, in this case there's nobody there, and what is going on. So where I am is at a school art contest, and what is going on is that there are 2 paintings and they each have some votes. All right, so now, what is this problem about? Who, what, where? This is a discussion board, and what you do is you put your answer here, and the cool thing is all of your friends' answers will be visible as well when we do this in whole group. But for you right now, you're just going to be posting for me, what is this problem about? And like I said, this problem is about a school art contest, and there are 2 paintings that have each received votes. Okay, that's what this problem is about, a school art contest, and there are 2 paintings and each have received votes. And then you click post. Okay, and this pops it up, and then I'm able to see what you have thought that this problem is about. It is important that you do these steps. If you skip these steps, you do not get points for participating in the lesson. So then we read it again, because now when we read it, we're going to be thinking, what are we trying to find out? Okay, so between each one of these steps of making sense of the problem, we want to read the problem again, because every time that we read it, we get a deeper understanding of the problem. So this time when I read it, what are you trying to find out? Well, let's see. These two paintings are in the school art contest. Which painting has more votes? Use a picture or model to show that you are correct. Painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. Well, let's see, what am I trying to find out? I'm trying to find out which painting has more votes. That was easy, right? Usually you could figure out what you're trying to find out because it's going to end in a question mark. And I can see right here that this sentence, which painting has more votes, that's what I'm trying to find out. So now I'm asking you, what are you trying to find out? And if I was you, I would be answering me and I would say, I am trying to find out which painting has more votes. All right, so now I've answered that question. Now, again, I'm moving on to the third step of my make sense of the problem routine, so I have to read the problem again. And this time when I am reading it, I'm going to think about what information is important. Now, when you're thinking about what information is important, you don't want to just automatically pull out those numbers and say, there's the important information. You have to understand what those numbers represent for the story, and you have to think about what it is that the problem is telling you to do with those numbers, okay? There might be keywords that are going to give you a hint as to what operation you're going to use. That's a word that I'm going to use a lot, operation. Operation means what type of math will you be using? Is it addition? Is it subtraction? Is it multiplication? Is it division? Is it comparing? Okay, so we want to be looking for our clues as to what operation we're going to use and those numbers that we're going to use and maybe any special instructions that we have to pay attention to. So the important information, I'm going to read my problem one more time. These two paintings are in the school art contest. Which painting has more votes? Use a picture or model to show that you are correct. Painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. All right, so I think it's probably very important that I pay attention to how many votes there are for painting A, right? Painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. You know what? I might want to take notes for that. All right, so painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. Okay, I think those are going to be really important, but what do I do with those numbers? Do I want to add them together? Well, let me think about it. Does it want to know how many votes there are in all? You know, it said which painting has more votes. No, I definitely don't want to know how many there are in all. Do I want to know by how many more votes one has than the other, right? Do I want to know the difference in votes? Because that would mean subtraction, but no, it wants to know which one has more, not how many more, right? Not how many more votes does one have than the other. So I'm not subtracting. It doesn't say that one of these paintings got a certain amount of votes a certain amount of times, because that would mean multiplication. I'm not breaking the number of votes into equal groups, so I'm not dividing. Which painting has more votes? Oh, I'm comparing. I'm comparing these numbers. I want to know which one has more votes, so all I really need to know is which number is greater. And if I need to know which number is greater, I'm comparing. All right, so I've got my numbers and I know that I'm comparing. Comparing is my operation. But there's something else that I've noticed when I'm reading here. It says use a picture or model to show that I'm correct. I can't just say which one is greater. I have to show that I'm correct by using a picture or model. So that's very important that I have to use a picture or model. I'm going to make sure that I pay attention to that. Okay, I'm ready to move on now. Okay, so it says, what is the important information and why is it important? Oh, well, I wrote that down in my notes, right? So I could open another tab. I can go to my drive. And I can look. Oh, here's my notes right here. Lesson 0, virtual notes. And this shows me exactly which slide had which notes as soon as it loads. Alright, so I just have to find the slide that I made my notes for. Here we go. And I could just copy this, copy, and I can paste them right here for my answer. The important information is painting A, 467 votes, painting B, I'll put my space in there. So painting A, 467 votes, painting B, 463 votes. I'm comparing and I'm using a picture or a model. That's the important information that I pulled out of that problem. Okay, well now it says solve and support your thinking. Solve the problem, record your process, solve another way. Now, you are going to go ahead and solve it. Okay, we're not going to go ahead and worry about solving it another way at this time, but you do need to record your process, which means that you're going to show it in that model or picture. Just to refresh my memory, these two paintings are in the school art contest. Which painting has more votes? Use a picture or model to show that you are correct. Painting A, 467 votes. Painting B, 463 votes. All right, now, so I'm going to show my work here, right? Okay, so I know I can go back to my notes that I took. I knew there was 467 votes and 463 votes, and I have to compare them and show which one was greater, right? Because I want to know which one had more votes. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to solve the problem. Now you have some tools down here that you can use. You can use a pen, you can use a highlighter, you can use a text box tool, you can import an image, which we won't need for this so much, and there's an eraser, but there will be things that we use that image for, just not right now with this problem. I'm going to go ahead and just use my marker. You can change the size of the tip of that marker, okay? You don't want it too fat because then if you try to write something, it's real fat. If you just want to undo that last thing that you did rather than grabbing the eraser, you just use this little back arrow and it just undoes that last thing that you did. If you want to completely clear your screen, like if you were doing a bunch of stuff and you're like, you know what, I'm just not onto the right track, you click this little paper that will erase everything all at once, okay? But now to solve my problem. All right, so I had, I've forgotten my numbers already. Good thing I can go back to my notes. So I have 467 votes and I have 463 votes. Well, I know that when I'm comparing numbers, 467, that I can look at the place values. 463. And it's really easy to compare those place values when I put them into a place value chart. Let me double check, make sure my numbers are right. Good, good. And if I'm using a place value chart, those numbers have to be stacked on top of each other, right? And I have to understand what places these are. You can change colors. I know that this is the hundreds place. I'm just going to use an H because I know that that represents hundreds. I know that this is the tens. I'm just going to use a T for 10. And I know that this is the ones place. I know that one starts with O. So hundreds, tens, ones. I know that when I'm comparing, I always start in the greatest place value, right? That's going to be the place value all the way to the left. I'm going to use my highlighter tool now. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to start in my place value right here. This is my greatest place value. And I know that when I'm comparing two digits in a number, if those two numbers are the same, they're equal, which means really that I can't compare them. So this is not the place value that's going to indicate whether one of these numbers is greater than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next place value, right? That would be the tens place, and I'm going to take a look at these place value, at these digits here. Yeah, I can see that these are also the same, so these are also not going to indicate to me which one is greater. So I'm going to move on to the next place. And now I'm in the ones place, and oh look, these are not the same. That means that I can compare them to each other, and what I notice is that this 7 is greater, right? That 7 is greater. That's awesome. That means that the whole number, right? This digit is greater than this digit, meaning the number that that digit is in is the greater number. That means that 467 is the greater number, okay? And I've used a model. This is a place value chart. A place value chart would be considered a model, okay? And when you're done, you would click Submit, and then it will take you on to the next slide. Oh, well, here are two different ways that I could have solved this problem. Here's an example of a picture it. They used base 10 blocks. We know in base 10 blocks that the big squares represent 100 each, that the rods represent 10 each, and that the individual cubes represent 1 each. So they've got 4 hundreds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tens, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ones, and that's why this represents 467. And here we've got 4 hundreds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rods, and 1, 2, 3 ones. So now I know that this is 463. And I can see, just like before, that these are equal to each other, right? The 400s here and the 400s here, those are equal. I can see that the 6 rods here and the 6 rods here, or the 6 tens, that they're equal. But oh look, I can visually see right here that there are more ones in 467 than there are in 463. So here's a way that you can prove that you are correct. And this is exactly what we just did here with the place value chart. All right, so then you just move on next, and it says, how much is each square worth? Well, I know that. I know that a square when I'm using base 10 blocks is each worth 100. So I'm going to go ahead and use my text tool here, and I'm going to drag my text box over to where I want it, and I'm going to say each one of those squares is worth 100. Now I know at first you might go, does that say 100? Because this is on top of it, but all you have to do is click off to the side somewhere and you'll see it did put 100. If you needed to edit that, you could double click it. Oh, let's see, I think we have to press the text again, and you can double click it, and then you can make any adjustments that you need to make. This one says, how much is each line worth, right? Line or rod. So we're going to make another text box, move it over to where it needs to go, and we know that each one of those rods is worth 10. Okay, and now the last one says, how much is each dot worth? Well, we know that those dots are like those little cubes when we are using base 10 blocks, and we know that each one of those little cubes is worth 1. All right, so now I have answered all of these questions, right? So I click submit. Don't click the over arrow until you click submit. and then it takes us on to the next one. And now we've got some more questions. Now only 1, 2, and 5 are circled, and there are only boxes for 1, 2, oh, this says 3. That is my fault. That should say 5, and I'll fix that for when you go in and do your Nearpod. But if only 3 of the problems are circled, you're only going to do 3 of the problems, okay? So the circled ones are the ones that you're going to complete. Number 1 says, look at the models on the previous page. Compare the hundreds and tens. What do you notice? Okay, well, we might need to look at that again, right? So look at the models on the previous page. Compare the hundreds and tens. So I can look at the back, and it's saying models, so I'm going to make sure I look at the models. I'm going to go back. The models, okay. So look at the model at here. Look at the hundreds, look at the tens. What do you notice about them? Both numbers have an equal amount of hundreds, and both numbers have an equal amount of tens. All right, let me go ahead and answer that. I'm going to grab a text box, move it on into there. So when I look at the models on the previous page and I compare the hundreds and tens, what I notice is that the hundreds are equal in both numbers and the tens are equal in both numbers. Oh, I've got a red line. That means something is not spelled correctly. I must have made a typo while I was typing. So what you do is you press Alt. Okay, you hold down Alt while you click on it, and you are going to get a little pop-up window here. Sometimes it will give you the option of what it thinks you are trying to spell. This time it didn't, but I know what I'm trying to spell, and I know how to spell it because it's right here in my text, right? Hundreds, and I put hundress. Ah, there's my problem, right? So hundreds. All right, I fixed it. Now I have no red lines. I'm good to move on to my next question. And my next one says, which place do you need to look at to compare the numbers and why? Well, do you remember when we were comparing, what place was it that we actually were able to compare those numbers in? It was the ones place. Why did we need to compare them in the ones place? We needed to compare them in the ones place because the other place values had been equal to each other. So I compared the numbers in the ones place because, not because I just automatically started there, but because the digits in the hundreds and tens had been equal. All right, I don't have any red lines, so I'm good to move on to number 3. Which painting has more votes? How do you know? Well, we know which painting has more votes, right? We know that 467, which was painting A, had more votes. So painting A had more votes because I saw in the ones place that 467 was greater than 463. I've got no red lines. I'm good. I'm going to submit. Okay, now I've given you a video on the next page that has a little refresher in case you need it. All right, so you move forward and that's going to automatically open up for you. You click OK, and then you can do this video to practice that skill. All right,
what are those?
I'm not going to go ahead and play it right now, but I suggest that you do. When you're done, you just close the window that opened and move on to the next one. And then after it loads, oh, it's another video that helps you to understand comparing that you can watch, and then it's got some more. So remember that apply. Apply means use the knowledge that you just worked on and show that you know how to use it, right? Apply means to use in that place, in the appropriate place. So we're going to use that knowledge here, for comparing. So you're going to use that greater than symbol or the less than symbol to complete each one of these comparison sentences. All right, and so you could either use your little marker. I would make the tip nice and small, choose whatever color you want, right? And you put in your symbols. I am not saying that those are the correct answers. I'm just putting it down for you guys to see how you could do it. Or if you wanted to, you could use a text box for each one. You could put it where it goes, and then you have to hold down Shift in order to use your greater than less than symbol, and you could do it that way as well. I think personally that in this situation the pen tool is going to be the easiest tool to use, okay, to just draw that greater than or less than symbol. Make sure that you submit before you move on. And that would be the end of that problem. And then it says, let's try another problem, and you're going to continue working. So I just wanted to walk you through how to use your Nearpod, how to use some of those tools, and you are going to do a Nearpod today as your lesson. You do not get graded necessarily for whether you're right and wrong when you're working through the first problem, but when you get to the apply page, that is where you are going to get graded. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention and that you're learning along the way. You're using those videos that I give you to help you understand better. Okay, you're going to get graded on participation when it comes to the discussion boards and answering the questions that pull apart the problem, but you are not going to get graded on whether you're right or wrong, just on your participation. That means whether or not you are trying and doing the problems. But when you get to the page that says apply, okay, right here, this is where you are going to get graded, because you should have been paying attention well enough in the previous slides that when you get to this slide, you can understand what it is that you are doing. All right, good luck. If you have any questions, I will be on Teams.